Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast. Introducing your host for this evening first. He is the host with the most from the West Coast, the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg. And his partner, he has colonized, energized, and revolutionized the podcasting wrestling world today. Your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once more to another exciting edition of the Court-Martail Podcast, made by Smarks, for Smarks, for the enjoyment of Smarks, and to the pleasure of Smarks worldwide. And that's just not talking about ACPW's potential new world champion, but that is coming up on a later date. Right now, we're talking about some fantastic topics. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, here to discuss all the wrestling news, the wrestling action, the wrestling match of the week, and of course, our wrestling superstar spotlight. But I'm not here alone, because I've done it alone before, and for some reason, it just didn't draw, so I had no choice but to bring in this man, the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour, the Bay Area Brawler himself, Skylar Greenberg. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Clearly, you just need a wingman, because I listened to those early shows when you were doing them on your own, and every time I heard you, I'm like, you need someone to bail you.
Someone, when I'm treading water and sinking fast, I need someone to throw out the life preserver, and that's where Skylar comes in. and
Yes, and now we're going to talk about some lunacy
in
the news
to be
of
fair,
the week.
To be fair, before we get there are times I think we bail each other out very well. We keep the ship afloat and quite sturdy, sturdier than it's ever been.
Clearly, as we have hit higher subscriber numbers, and we have to thank each and every one of you, but please continue to like, subscribe, and share the Court-Martail Podcast.
Keep it up.
Fear your way to the top.
So that way we can bring you as much news as possible, and if it keeps going at this rate, these are going to be long shows. Roll that intro. Coming straight to you from the Golden Gate Garage, this is the Wrestle News with Skylar Green.
It is the news of the week with the Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, at your service. And when I meant Spirit to the Top, I actually meant Rhodes to the Top.
Oh,
because we have to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, yes. So this is a little bit, this series season finale happened, a couple weeks ago, right? It was like at the end of October.
But here's the thing. The reason why I didn't bring it up is because I hate reality TV.
Fair.
I think it's garbage.
Fair.
It's the lowest common denominator of television.
Fair.
But we have to talk about this discovery that you made.
Yes, well, I cannot say that I made it personally. I have to give credit where credit's due. Everybody knows of my long-standing love of the one Jim Cornette. I'm not a religious follower. I don't agree with everything he says, but sometimes he breaks news to me that makes me want to share it with all of you. So, Skylar, I'm going to let you say what happened here. But this is, did you end up watching the clip?
Absolutely not.
Me either. I couldn't possibly. But it was, so, what? Just say it.
You want me or?
Why don't you say it? Because this is your segment. I don't want to impede on your segment.
But the thing about it is that you're the one that brought it up.
All right, fine.
I'm just minding my own business. Okay? I'm just
fine.
Relaxing.
Well, while you are over there sipping your tea.
No, hold on. Let me explain it. So while I'm doing this, relaxing and getting ready to book my NWO shows, in comes Sean, who hears via Corny that Cody Rhodes on this reality TV show had a box to QT Marshall with Brandi's placenta in it.
Which is not even the story. That's not even the story. The story behind this is the reason that Cody Rhodes is handing this box to QT Marshall with Brandi's placenta in it is because Brandi wants to eat it. You did not hear that incorrectly. She wants to eat it. And I looked into this, and apparently This is a thing. People do this. Why?
Is there a health benefit?
There can't be a logical reason for this. This has to be something spiritual, I have to imagine. Like, I'm just so close to my baby that I want to eat what it was carried in. I have no idea. I am not the person to ask.
Tube that I use to feed the baby.
Yeah. now, to be fair, neither of us are the people to be asking why. Because just for the fact,
we are asking why. Because what the hell is this?
But I don't understand. Yes, somebody please inform us. This is not us criticizing Brandi in any way. I just don't get it.
No, let's criticize Brandi, can we?
Oh, we always can criticize Brandi if you. I mean, go ahead, woman hater, Skylar Greenberg. We've established this as your gimmick.
Well, it's not just Brandi; it's Cody. This reality TV show
is still
their way to try and improve their image,
to
improve their star power, get people to like them, I guess.
Yeah, it's so much a sham, and people see all the way through it. But this is easily the most interesting piece of this entire reality show. But why these two thought that this was going to be a show that people wanted to watch is beyond me.
No, they want to appeal to trashy people. This is their thing. They want to appeal to trashy people who are shallow and only like to follow celebrities. This is what reality TV and everything I hate about reality TV is in a nutshell. It's people doing stupid things for entertainment.
Yeah, but they're not even doing anything that interesting. That's the thing about this. It's reality TV, but they're just like having idle chatter. It's
yeah. Most of the episodes are Brandi and Cody talking about their baby.
I mean, fairly, it's not like Total Bellas is that much different, or Ms. and Mrs. They're just, the production value is probably a little bit better.
Production value is a little bit different, but also personalities are what make reality TV. Like, that's the thing. I recognize reality TV has a spot in entertainment maybe 20 years ago. The concept is tired, worn out. Does that sound familiar?
It does. It sounds shockingly familiar.
It's a gimmick that has gone way past its expiration date. At least with Total Bellas and Mr. and Mrs. Miz, they were done at a time when reality TV wasn't so bad that it was... I mean... now that I think about it, Total Divas was a shit.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an interesting question. Do you think Maurice would be offended if you called her Mrs. Miz? Like, if you walked up to her and, hey, Mrs. Miz, what's going on? Like, do you think kids, like, when they go trick-or-treating, are like, let's go to Mrs. Miz's house? That's just a mouthful.
I mean, honestly, that's the reason that she's famous.
No. Maurice had a decent career before she had anything to do with The Miz.
Yes, but she's most known now as his wife.
Well,
oh God.
No. Oh man.
Sorry, I'm getting the rules.
You're so enraged at the concept of reality television that you're just misplacing your words. That's what it is, Sky.
It's just one of those things where, like, Maurice, name me a good Maurice match.
She had a couple matches with Mickie James, I believe it was, in either 2009, I want to say. It was...
But Mickie James could have a 3-star match with a broomstick.
But she also had some... I will have to go into Maurice's career. You know what this leads to? You know what? We're going to have to do this now. This is going to have to be a spotlight.
Match of the week, Maurice.
We're going to find a Maurice match of the week, and we're going to make it happen. I'm going to write it on a sheet that I'm definitely going to look at after this moment.
But do not do a Brandi match of the week, because I do not want to watch a Brandi match.
It's good thing.
Cody match.
Good thing those two have not been in a match together. Can you imagine Maurice versus Brandi?
Ooh.
What about Queen Charmel versus Brandi?
Here's the thing. Made the joke about... we couldn't know what the hell it was doing. Like, is QT getting the placenta to eat it? Is Brandi eating it? And then it led to a whole thing of, in your company, you have Cody, and he left because of Brandi. The reason why he should have left is because she wanted to eat her placenta.
And he's so
She's-
weirded out by that, and he's like, nah, I'm out. I'm gone.
Like, at least Katie Forbes, she's a slut, but she's not going to eat her own placenta.
Nah, you think she's having kids? Come on.
I mean, she could.
Maybe one day. But
And then those kids will be twerking their butts out.
oh my god.
They'll come out of the womb twerking. We should move on.
We very much should move on.
Now, this next topic is a little bit harder to talk about. I'm going to try and be respectful about it as best I can. It was broken by one Tony Khan that apparently one Jon Moxley will be entering rehab for alcohol substance issues.
Okay.
Now, let's be clear. I hate Jon Moxley, the wrestler.
I've lost favor with him of late. Agreed.
But as a person, I hope he gets better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, alcohol is a really, really tough thing to break. It is. And just recognizing alone that it's something that you need to handle, which I've had to do once or twice, not terribly, and nowhere to the need of level that, obviously, that John is going through right now. But it is a very difficult thing to go through. It is one of the toughest addictions to break, is the addiction to alcohol. And I do wish him the best. I do want to be a bit of a dick, though, because it's like, say what you want about Moxley, but wow, the guy who idolizes the guy who robbed a bank, heroin addict, has a substance problem. I can't say I'm really surprised at this news. I don't want to be that guy, you know what I mean? But, like, at the same time, is this not kind of predictable?
I mean, yeah. I get your point. It's like, it's ironic how Moxley idolizes someone who's a very bad influence, and look what happened.
Yeah, I mean, then listen, I'm all for Jon Moxley's recovery, right? I'm not saying in any way that I don't support his path to recovery. The fact that he even recognized he had a problem is a lot bigger than the man he idolizes. Way bigger. So, all the credit in the world to Jon Moxley. You know, he's got Renee, he's got the child now. So, I respect him doing the right thing.
Doing it is that he wants to be there for his kid.
Right.
And he wants to be there for his wife.
Right.
And just to be clear, it could be a bad thing. It could be a good thing. Just because he's addicted doesn't mean it's the stereotypical AA thing.
Well, and here's the other thing about this too, and this is just something from my experience from others I know, particularly relatives with rehab. One of the difficult things about rehab is that when you leave, you go into the exact same environment with the exact same influences around the exact same thing, unless you're really trying to make an effort to stop. But they're not going to do that for you, which makes it very difficult and very easy to slip up. As it was evidenced by, and everybody should watch, and this is just a shameless plug because it's an incredible movie, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake.
It's a great movie. Also, another one that we should mention is that, does Jeff Hardy have more rehab trips or world title reigns?
It's probably near the same. If it's probably equal.
It is probably equal.
It's
which is, again, another sad story in wrestling.
Well, and this also leads to a bigger problem in wrestling, is that within some reason there have been people who have gotten support from major companies that they've been a part of when they've run onto these times, and there are some people who haven't. And I respect that Tony Khan is really kind of helping him through this so that he can get the help he needs. But what is that help? I'd be interested to know what that help genuinely is. But I already respect the fact that Tony is being as proactive on the matter as he can be.
And that's all we can ask for, right?
Right. Well, it beats the alternative. This
It beats the alternative.
Right. This would not, and hopefully this will not end up being a dark side of the ring, as has so many others on the other side of the fence, up north, as they say.
And speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about that, because they had their season finale of Dark Side of the Ring, the steroid trial. Sean, I wasn't going to talk about this, but when I was looking over, I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about this.
Yeah. This was probably arguably my favorite episode of the series. It's nice to see Vince actually a babyface for a change after so many condemning and damning videos that Dark Side of the Ring have put like basically him on blast.
Is Vince a babyface though?
Why would he not be?
I mean, yes, I get it. It's the federal government, and the federal government is the federal government. But
And it was
allegations. But the allegations that Vince McMahon gave his wrestlers steroids, right?
Well, the allegation is that he was intending to distribute steroids and had told wrestlers to distribute steroids because that woman had sent the letter from Zahorian saying that they're going to meet at the Nassau Coliseum and whatever, and which was quickly debunked, saying that they weren't even in the town. They weren't even on Long Island on those dates. And so, really, I honestly genuinely wonder why this even made to trial, considering that the piece of evidence they used to bring it to trial was very easily debunked. The federal government just did not have a case, and it almost felt like this was more of a let's make an example out of the WWE to emphasize our point about steroids, rather than actually having any factual means of taking Vince McMahon down, as evidenced by the fact that McDivitt didn't call a single witness.
Which is, McDivitt is interviewed in this particular episode. He may be the best guest that they've ever had for any single topic.
I loved it. He got that big lawyer jowl, that second frog-like chin underneath their original chin. That just tells that they have said a lot of words a lot of the time. And it was and Jerry, he was wonderful. I loved his takedown of John Arezzi. Holy God.
Right. Also, there are some people in this particular episode who come out as the bad guys. Nails.
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, I think that was kind of just a miscalculation on Nails' part. Because it's not like Nails was going anywhere in WWE, right? So, what did he have to lose by going out there and testifying against Vince? You know what I mean? It's like everybody else was still kind of protective. Even Warrior was still kind of protective. And also, I believe, telling the truth, for saying, I never heard from Vince McMahon explicitly to get on steroids. I was taking steroids before Vince McMahon showed up. That's, I think, the funniest part of this whole episode. That all of these wrestlers just basically gave away, yes, everyone is on steroids, which completely defeated the whole purpose of having the trial, because it basically proved the federal government's point anyway, that everyone was on steroids, but everyone's like, no, Vince McMahon didn't do it. But yeah, we're all on steroids. We all
took it ourselves.
Yeah. So it was like, and I think that's partially why, of all the people, when Hogan came up there and said all that, Vince was so pissed at Hogan for saying it, but it was, that, and then
hold on. I have a question.
Yes.
When did this trial specifically happen?
This happened in, I believe, it was mid to late 1993 into 94.
Okay, late 93.
Yeah, it was November of 93 when the trial, I believe McMahon was indicted, and then it was 94 that the trial was taking place.
Okay, so then this probably would have been after the Taker-Hogan match, because I was about to say, if this happened before, Taker must have been told to drop Hogan on his head.
Yeah, no, well after. No, this was after Hogan had left WWE, and here's the interesting thing. No, I take that back. It was November of 92 when McMahon was indicted. It was all through 93 that they had this trial, and then I think it was... it
was decided in 94, in July.
Yeah, but it was all through 93 the trial was taking place. But what's interesting about this timeline is that they make this... He gets indicted in 92, but he still has Hogan beat Bret Hart or beat Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. after all of that. It's just very interesting that the staple child of pretty much what they were trying to get through in this moment, Hogan was still being prominently featured on WWE television. It's very interesting just to see how this timeline melded and how Vince McMahon on WWE television was responding despite what was happening in the public media. By the way, fuck Phil Mushnick.
Oh, very much. Fuck Mushnick. But here's a wrestling what if. Let me propose this to you, okay?
Okay.
Vince McMahon gets indicted and goes to jail, right?
Gets convicted, yep.
And who is left in charge of WWE?
Jerry Jarrett.
What would have happened if Jerry Jarrett was in charge of WWE?
Well, I honestly think they probably would have had more long-term success. Partially, I think that they would have had a lot less bumpy road from 94 to 96 because a lot of that gimmicky garbage was Vince. I think Jarrett would have run a little bit more of a pro wrestling style rather than sports entertainment.
You wouldn't have the Mr. McMahon character.
Well, I don't think that it ever would have had the massive boom that it would have, but I also don't think that the war would have really ever started because at that point, there was no reason to put McMahon out of business because McMahon was in jail, right? Half of it was Ted Turner wanted to just kick Vince McMahon's behind and put him out of business. If McMahon's in jail, I can't imagine there'd be animosity between Jerry Jarrett and Ted Turner. So I don't think we really would have ever had a war. We probably would have just had two healthy, prospering companies.
It would have depended on if Jerry Jarrett would have taken Vince McMahon's booking ideas from his jail cell. Could you imagine Mr. McMahon on the phone? Okay, here's what I need you to do. I need you to screw over Bret Hart. You need to get the title on Shawn Michaels.
That would not. Well, I don't think that issue would. Shawn Michaels, if Jerry Jarrett was there, I almost guarantee you, if Jerry Jarrett was there and Shawn Michaels pulled that shit, Shawn would have been fired. He would have been on his ass. Probably working for WCW and then relegated to irrelevancy or the cruiserweights, or the Shawn Michaels would not have been Shawn Michaels, no matter how good he was. Vince McMahon forgiving Shawn Michaels so many goddamn times between 1994 and 1999 was unbelievable, but was crucial to Shawn Michaels being the legend that he's known today.
Very much so. At least Shawn Michaels has mellowed out with age.
It's true. It's true. And don't get me wrong, Shawn Michaels for a very, very long time was my favorite wrestler. Because he had the name I had. Because I'm Shawn, and he's Shawn. And as a kid, I'm like,
and Shawn Michaels legitimately may be one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of wrestling.
As far as an in-ring performers, absolutely. Although I do have to say, on a side tangent, did you hear what Punk had to say about Shawn Michaels versus Bret?
I did.
So, for those of you who this was months ago, but or about a month ago, we just didn't get to record it because we were doing other stuff, but CM Punk basically said that Bret Hart's stuff holds up better than Michaels because it's just, you kind of know what you're getting with Shawn Michaels. Then when you see Bret and you see how much he diversifies, I honestly understand CM Punk's point because I have seen, and we've seen a lot of Michaels matches that do kind of follow a very similar pattern.
And the thing with Bret Hart is that he's a technical wrestler, and because he's technical, he's not going to do the same thing over and over and over again. He's going to give you different submission holds or different wrestling moves over a series of matches than he is just going to, do the same moveset that Shawn Michaels does over and over again.
Yeah, you're not going to get the forearm, nip up, scoop slam, elbow, hobble-a-lobble, hit in the corner, the tuning up the band, sweet chin music, Bob's your uncle. But with Bret, even at the very least, even if he didn't do anything moves that were different, he would put them in different places to accentuate different strengths of whoever it was he was working with. Where Shawn pretty much was like, you're working my match or else you're getting your ass fired.
And you were making me look good, but
yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah. It's, there's definitely an attitude difference, but that's not to say that Shawn Michaels didn't knock it out of the park so many goddamn times. I'm not trying to take anything away from Shawn Michaels.
It's just an interesting debate between two of the legends of wrestling.
It is.
And their place in wrestling.
Yeah. And so, but in any case, it's had Vince gone to jail, we probably wouldn't have had any of that because Michaels would not have been around. But I bet you that Bret Hart would definitely have stayed much longer for WWE and probably would have had a much longer career, maybe into the mid 2000s.
You probably would have had the rematch between between Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin instead of Austin and Michaels.
I'm going to throw another one out here, and this is kind of a sad one, but because we're talking about Dark Side of the Ring, we could have had Owen Hart as world champion. We could have had Owen Hart alive. Hate to bring it up, but it's the facts. But in any case, the steroid trial was what it was. To be fair to Vince McMahon, it wasn't his fault.
It was never going to get him.
It wasn't his. Of all the ways that they could have gotten him, that was not the way they were going to get him.
Right. And speaking of things that are dead, we're going to talk about ROH for a second. We're going to be very quick with this one because it's not very big news.
Yeah.
This is just a follow-up of what happened.
Like not hours after we recorded.
Yep. But basically, ROH is selling their tape library to the highest bidder.
Which pretty much confirms what we were saying last week, Sky, that this has got to be it. I don't see a return here.
How does Impact keep outliving these wrestling companies?
Well, being Tony Khan's bitch for a little while definitely did not hurt.
It's like, why do these people keep pouring money into this idea?
It's because Tony Khan is a mark and liked Impact when Impact was good and wanted to lend a helping hand.
It's not just Tony Khan. Tony Khan's just the latest one. I'm talking about Dixie Carter. I'm talking about Billy Corgan. I'm talking about the fucking Owl.
Anthem. Yeah. Everybody's tried. Only a few have succeeded. And it kind of makes you miss Jeff Jarrett. Even though Jarrett at the end was not helping at all. By the time that Jarrett was doing like the GFW versus TNA rivalry, that was not helping in the slightest. What a time to be alive. Impact still trudging on. Oh, Lord.
And speaking of things that are trudging on, we'll continue on to WWE and their record profits.
Yeah, well, man, you know what?
In their
Before we get to the profits, maybe Ring of Honor might have some talent coming up, but we won't spoil it.
No, we're going to spoil it because WWE recorded record profits in their latest quarter.
Yep.
And you want to know how they celebrated it?
Firing people. That's why they always do record profits.
Specifically, 18 people.
Yep. Let's read this list. I'm so excited. Wait, you know what? I'm going to make an intro for this because I guarantee you this is not going to be the last time we're doing. Roll that WWE releases intro. So you've been released by the WWE. Best of luck in your future endeavors. You've been released by the WWE. And now you gotta go wrestle for Impact. You've been released by the WWE. Best of luck in your future endeavors. You've been released by the WWE. Damn, and now what? Pal. You gotta wrestle for Impact. Impact. And you know that pay gon' be so low.
Alrighty, let's get started. I'm going to start with the lower names first before we get to the higher names. So a lot of you are going to go quickly because you're not going to know who these people are.
Yep. There are going to be a lot of owls in here that aren't buying Impact.
All right. Harry Smith.
That's not the Harry Smith that's like in the Hart family. No.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Is it?
Different. I can't. No, because he didn't get re-signed, did he? If he did, I don't remember that at all.
A.K.A. Davey Boy Smith Jr.?
Yeah. It can't be. That can't be who.
Let me double check.
Yeah.
No, he. It's the same person.
Wow. When did they sign him? When?
April April 6th, and he had one dark match, and he was gone.
Okay, good. I'd like to see him again. I was wondering where he went. In the dark, in the books of WWE. Okay, good to see him gone.
Jeet Rama.
Woo!
Some Indian guy.
Got it.
Okay, Katrina Cortez.
Woo!
Trey Baxter.
Okay, I recognize the name, but whoo!
That's the thing, is that it's not a very memorable name. Zadia Ramir?
Woo!
Jesse Camira?
Woo!
Okay, now let's actually get to the names that we're going to recognize.
Okay.
Graham Malik and Lindsay Dorado.
Oh, they weren't
It's
bad.
proof that WWE doesn't know what to do with cruiserweights.
They don't know what to do with luchadors who aren't named Rey Mysterio. That's really what it boils down to. They've tried for over a decade with Sin Cara and Hunico. They tried for a while, and
Alberto Del Rio,
and
Andrade Cien Almas.
Alberto Del Rio got the closest of anybody. He got the closest to being a crossover, but then,
which is sad because he's the shittiest person.
Yeah.
B-Fab, the female member of Hit Row.
Uh?
They're a stable that just got brought up to SmackDown. They were on NXT. I haven't seen their work. I don't know.
Well, then, whoo! Owls are back.
Frankie Monate, a.k.a. Tara Valkyrie.
I hope that means that John Morrison is leaving next. Because he is not being used properly in the annals of WWE. He came back and joined up with The Miz, and he's been shackled to The Miz ever since. And he needs to break free and fly somewhere where he can be respected again.
I feel like Tara Valkyrie is just going to go back to Impact.
I almost guarantee you she will. I mean, maybe she'll go to AEW. She could.
No. Impact's her home.
But I feel like, at the same time, Taya Valkyrie's one of those people who has kind of been known for making enemies.
By the way, I also find it interesting that she thanked WWE, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels.
Well, yeah. Why would she possibly thank Vince McMahon, who completely derailed her push and then released her?
I know. Ember Moon.
This one I'm happy for because I never disliked Ember Moon. I just thought that she never really got a chance to display the kind of work she could do.
She doesn't fit WWE style.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't. She'll end up in AEW, and she'll most likely be better for it. I just hope she doesn't use the same name Eclipse like she did before.
God, no. Karrion Kross and Scarlett.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're thinking Triple H and Shawn Michaels only as well.
And making fun of that stupid mask that Karrion Kross had to wear.
Yeah. Talk is Jericho's going to be interesting.
Here's the thing. Karrion Kross is a shitty wrestler. He's a generic big man. There's nothing special about him. The only thing that's special is the girl that's next to him.
Karrion Kross is a shitty sports entertainer. He's a good wrestler. He's a shitty sports entertainer.
No. Well,
his finishing move was garbage. That was the only thing I had an issue with him, was that his finishing move was garbage. I liked everything else that he did. But a back suplex is just not a finish in 2021 pro wrestling.
But from the top rope?
No.
Remember that match he had with Keith Lee?
Yes.
And all three of us collectively thought that wasn't the finish, and then it was, and like, wait, that's the finish?
Yeah. We were all upset about that. And that's why, because it's a crappy finish. But he himself, everything up to that point, I liked. He lays it in, he's got good facials. Unfortunately, he's just not a sports entertainer, which is what Vince wants out of people. but I guarantee if there was a place that actually showed, if he was in NWA without all the garbage stuff that NWA started doing, but if he was in earlier NWA, he would thrive. But he's not in the environment for his success, so I'm happy that he's gone so he can be successful elsewhere.
If it was NWA at a time when NWA wasn't doing goofy shit.
Correct.
So I don't know, we'll see what happens. Mia Yim, more proof that WWE does not know what to do with Asian wrestlers, specifically Asian female.
Or just with women.
Well, no, if you're blonde, tall, and last name is Flair, you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That
and
you've
also
got.
if you're a horsewoman, otherwise you're not gonna get much success.
That's right.
Except for the one or two who get scraps.
So at this point, Mia Yim, again, her talents are better served elsewhere.
Never forget that her and Mercedes Martinez were part of Retribution.
Oh, I'd love to forget that, though.
Everyone would. Now then, we're going to get up to the bigger name, Eva Marie.
Why did you do this, John? Laurinaitis, I'm talking specifically to you. Why? What was this worth it? Did you just want to see her and sniff her hair again and then let her go? I mean, what was the point of this?
What does hair smell like?
Depends on what she washed it with.
Well, whatever she washed it with apparently got John in his roughies, but I don't know why.
This is,
yeah. And she was talking about training for her comeback, and she looked even worse than when she was here the first time.
Because she only had, 2 matches? She barely wrestled. She was barely here. She was like, thanks for the cup of coffee, and left.
Hey, I'll take taking little paychecks for doing nothing.
That was... I'm glad she's gone just because that's just a waste of a roster space.
Nia Jax.
I wish that I had those little, like the party favors and the... And the party hats for everybody. Everybody get your party hats out. Women can wrestle safely for the most part again.
Now, here's the thing. Nia Jax as a wrestler, if she had actually gotten time to develop in NXT and then just get rushed to the main roster to try and be the WWE's female Big Show, then she would have been great.
Yeah, if she'd actually learned how to not kill everyone that she was ever in the ring with, I'm sure we would look at her in such fonder regard. But
did you hear how she was released?
I did not hear how she was released.
Okay, so she was away for a mental health break, which I get it. Sometimes you need to get away from it.
Yeah. And
then WWE gave her a schedule starting on November 15th of when she was going to wrestle, and she asked for more time away. And then the day after, they gave her notice.
Well,
more proof that WWE is a soulless shell.
You know, if she was an employee, she might have had a little more leeway to do something about it. But that's another discussion for another time. Because that's something we don't acknowledge. There's 2 things that I want to point out here about these releases, which I know we're not even done with yet. That's the thing. We're not even done with, but I am so excited for Nia Jax to be not on WWE programming. Do you think that a wrestling promotion will pick her up?
I feel like they would because of the name value.
Where does she land? You know that AEW fans would straight up reject her.
So that's why she'll go there and be the massive heel that they need in that division.
If it's not going to be Charlotte.
Nia Jax.
Could you imagine?
Continue.
No, that's all I was saying. I was just saying, could you imagine?
Oh, come on. It's the matchup that we've been waiting for the entirety of our lives. You can see it now. Nia Jax versus Britt Baker, right?
Oh no.
No, let's make it better. Nia Jax versus Riho.
Nia Jax versus Nyla Rose.
Yes.
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 That's gonna happen.
Yes.
That's what we've all wanted. You know, when everyone says AEW women's division is as thick and as creamy as it's ever been, that's what we're talking about.
Now let's get to the release that actually is the one that I care about.
Yes.
Keith
come on,
Lee.
you care about Nia Jax. You care.
Fuck off. Keith Lee.
Not in an affectionate, I'm sad that she's gone way, but you care that she's gone.
Moving on.
He won't admit it, folks, but you heard it here first.
Keith Lee.
Tell me why you said
that. I'm going to let that silence sit there because of how depressing it is that this guy who could have been a major star, he was being cheered so hard at the Survivor Series match and then at the Royal Rumble, and then they ruined him.
Because that's what they love to do. They made a name out of ruining people. It is sad.
I want this company to die.
It's sad because a lot of why he wasn't around and why it was so stop and start was medical. And again, if he was an employee, they wouldn't have been able to fire him for that. But let's not get into that. It's just, again, it almost feels like his talent is better served elsewhere. Because as much as he would have fit WWE style, that at some point they would have had to water him down so much that he wouldn't even resemble the same Keith Lee that we would know from NXT.
They did. They named him Bearcat Lee, or...
Yep. And it was only going to get worse from there. It was only going to get worse from there. And now it's let's just all be thankful that it's over. Let's be thankful that his pain has ceased.
This guy was a double champion in NXT. He was going to win the U.S. title until he got COVID.
Yep. It's WWE's loss.
It's stupid that Vince McMahon sees one flaw and decides, you know what? I don't like you anymore. Get rid of him. I don't care where he goes. Get rid of him.
Well, until the Vince McMahon problem is solved, it's going to end up this way all the time. You know, and this is just another guy. How many people can we say have been the future main event star that we've had to talk about their release within the past 2 years?
Forget 2 years, 6 months.
Yeah. You know,
like Keith Lee, Adam Cole, Daniel Bryan. Look at these talent that you're shedding.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, there's rumors that Kyle O'Reilly's contract is ending in a couple months.
Yeah.
You think he's going to stick around?
Owens and Zayn are out.
Owens and Zayn are basically on the way out.
That pretty much confirmed it. You know, Owens' little illusion promo that they're getting the hell out of there. You know, WWE is going to have to be careful of losing, being very shallow of talent. They need to thin that roster, but that roster still feels thin, even though there's a jillion people on it.
Because no one's important.
Because no one's over, and they don't believe that anyone should be over. And now they're starting to have that philosophy bite them in the ass.
Because they went with the brand idea, that the brand is what people are going to come for, not the wrestlers.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see it's biting them in the butt.
Yeah, they're making record, but the problem is they're making record profits because the networks are paying them boatloads of money to show their material. So it doesn't matter in the long run. They don't even care. They don't even care. That's the saddest part about this, you know. But I think they're going to be backed into a corner sooner or later. And then it's going to be interesting to see what goes on from there. What happens when they don't have enough talent to do 2 shows?
They'll go to 1 show?
It'll be very... Well, will they just merge the roster again? And try to get everybody in? And try to jam everybody in on the 3 hours of Raw? And what could end up being a 3rd hour of SmackDown if it came to it? Because they know that they can just add, as we found out from the interview with Nick Khan, they found out that all you need, you can make it a 4th hour because it's all about ad revenue.
That was a joke. I don't think it was ever going to happen.
Yeah, but a 3rd hour on SmackDown, they'd probably do it and still get money out of it. He might have been joking, but there's a little bit of truth in the statement.
All they'd have to do is just put in a bunch of tournaments to fill the time.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a good segue, about as good as we're gonna get. But my final thought about this part with these releases, something tells me this will not be the last this year we see of talent releases coming from WWE.
Especially if John Laurinaitis has to do budget cuts.
Because
I swear, every single promo that CM Punk ever cut on John Laurinaitis and WWE ages like fine wine.
Yeah. Hasn't been wrong yet. And
hasn't been wrong yet.
If only he could have been crowned, instead of the best in the world, he could have been crowned a king of the ring, rather than having Shane McMahon take the title of best in the world in a tournament, which is our topic today. Not Shane McMahon. Christ, no. Well, we
were going to talk about him because he was involved in a tournament.
We will. A couple of tournaments. But we're going to talk about tournaments in wrestling. There have been innumerable wrestling tournaments, as far as single tournaments, tag tournaments, all kinds of tournaments that have led to, most of the time, either a financial prize or a trophy or championship gold, or a combination of the 3. Some have worked, some have not. And there have been, going back at least as far as WWE's history, the first one I really remember is the Wrestling Classic.
Yep, the Wrestling Classic 16-man tournament in November 1985.
Yep.
Junkyard Dog defeating Randy Savage.
And that was a very interesting tournament. The Junkyard Dog was really not the wrestler that he was, 5 or 6 years earlier, working in Mid-South, but still as popular as ever at the time. And then the King of the Ring concept comes along, and there are more tournaments that come through, particularly WrestleMania 4.
Yes, and the infamous 14-man tournament to win the vacant WWF Championship, won by one Randy Savage.
Yep. And that was, have you ever watched that WrestleMania, Sky?
It's a weird WrestleMania because there's so many matches, and you can tell that they're just trying to go through it all.
Yeah. I mean, it was a long show.
Oh boy, yes.
It was a very long show. And that was one of the ones that, and I mean, don't get me wrong. It's Randy Savage and Dibiase were the final. That was gonna be a barn burner. Those two definitely knew what they were doing in that respect.
But some of the matches on this bracket were weird.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It definitely was not just a who's who, it was a who's that.
Here, let me go through the first round. You tell me whether or not you find anything in this good, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Jim Duggan versus Ted DiBiase.
That is classic. Those two had a hell of a rivalry in Mid-South. That is worth mentioning, and if y'all get a chance to look back at it, if Peacock ever releases it, it's definitely worth doing.
Don Morocco versus Dino Bravo.
In another time, probably. In another time, I would have liked it, but they wouldn't give it a lot. They probably wouldn't give it a whole lot of time.
5 minutes, and it was a DQ finish.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Greg the Hammer Valentine.
That would with both of those two in their primes, that would probably be a barn burner. But anything past 1984 is past the prime of Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Right. Randy Savage beating Butch Reed.
Again, at another time. In another time, and it would be a classic.
One Man Gang beating Bam Bam Bigelow in 3 minutes.
Why would you put that in the first round?
I don't know. And then Jake Roberts and Rick Rude going to a draw.
Well, that was part of a longer
time limit.
That was part of a longer feud, though, that they were going on and continuing later on, I believe.
Right, and then there's the quarterfinals. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant doing a double disqualification,
which was weird.
Ted DiBiase defeating Don Morocco.
Yep.
And getting a bye because of it in the semis to go directly to the finals. That's the thing, is that there were buys because of the draw in the first round with Roberts and Rick Rude.
Right.
And Hogan and Andre doing double DQs.
Yep.
So it wasn't as many matches as it was supposed to be.
Which is probably for the best, considering how long the show was to begin with.
Exactly.
You know? And
I mean, this WrestleMania had 16 matches.
yeah. That's a lot.
The thing is that Rick Rude and Jake Roberts match was the 15-minute match. That was the longest match.
Yeah. And we're not even fazed by that nowadays. Now we come to expect 16 matches, but we get 2 nights now. Thankfully, we get 2 nights of action.
But yeah, that WrestleMania 4 tournament was classic.
Yep.
Where are some other good, there's good and bad WWE tournaments.
Well, that kind of brings us to the major tournament set that they do, which is the King of the Ring. This is the old school King of the Ring I really liked, but it made it wear out its welcome.
It was a gimmick that was good for its time, but started to wear out its welcome.
Yeah. There used to be actual rewards. There used to be actual rewards for it, that was big part of it. I always loved when Bret Hart won it, and then Jerry Lawler immediately was like, no, I'm the only king around here, which led to their feud, which I really enjoyed.
And that's the thing about King of the Ring, is that when you win the King of the Ring, it means that you are the king of whatever thing you want to find. It's a very good gimmick for a heel or for a babyface if you want to push it in a certain way.
Well, but you notice that
it was a breakout tournament.
Well, you notice that Bret never did wear the crown and scepter after the fact. He won it, he got the title, and that was it. You know?
Right. Because certain wrestlers would take the crown and the scepter and they would do the gimmick, or some didn't, because it didn't fit them. Like, Bret Hart didn't need the crown and the scepter.
Right. But Owen did.
Like Jerry the King Lawler did.
Yeah. But Owen did when he won it the year afterwards. Because he had to rub it in everybody's face that he won the King of the Ring. Which is what led to the great Bret and Owen feud.
Yep. Now, the thing about wrestling tournaments is that it's part of that sport element, and that's what really draws us, is that it does feel like sport. I mean, one of the most famous tournaments is the Deadly Game tournament at the 1998 Survivor Series.
Yep. Which was also to crown a new world's champion.
And that tournament specifically made The Rock a star. As a heel, but as a star nonetheless.
Yeah, becoming the corporate champion. And,
but for every Deadly Games, we also get Brawl for All.
Well, Brawl for All is in a league in and of itself.
Which will require an episode to explore on its own.
And like Dark Side of the Ring did, which you should all watch, because it's definitely an intriguing watch. It just, to me, that was just a bad idea. It was just a bad... And then King of the Ring, you know, there's a reason that they stopped doing it for 4 years or so, but another guy who benefited from it, Brock Lesnar, Steve Austin.
Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar, the Macho King, Randy Savage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it hasn't had prestige. Even Booker T got a push when he won the King of the Ring. You know? And then donned the ridiculous British accent, which was...
Hey, it was funny nonetheless.
It was funny.
And King of the Ring is one of the more... Like, there are 2 or 3 tournaments that are legendary in wrestling. King of the Ring is one of them. The Crockett Cup in WCW.
Yep.
The G1 in New Japan.
Yeah, which is a completely different format of a tournament.
Right. Even, I know you and me have made fun of the past of Chikara, but King of Trios is a fun tournament.
Yeah, I mean, Heart Foundation Cup.
Well,
but seriously, but think about how well but it's a tournament though, but think about how well it works. There's a reason that both you and I, in our fantasy booking, which if you want to watch, we got 2 weeks from now, it is our November show, Wrestle Festival, for our great friends at the National Wrestling League, and just a regular go-home show for Winter Warfare for ACPW. But there's a reason that tournaments are a great framing tool for story. If you can do it right without over-gimmicking it.
Because they're very easy to do. Like, I'm going to be honest, I'm probably not going to do a Heart Foundation Cup next year. I'm going to switch it up with something else.
Sure.
Because I'm getting to the point now where, if I do it every single year, I'm going to get the gimmick tired.
Right.
I need to change it up a little bit, change the scenes.
Right.
But don't completely abandon it like WWE did for a long time.
Right. But then again, at the same token, every time they've brought it back, I felt less and less enthusiastic about who the winner ends up being. In all credit to Corbin, though, he definitely tried to make it something.
He tried, but he couldn't do what other wrestlers like Booker T did because they're not as. Baron Corbin is not as talented.
He's an actor more than he is somebody who can really take the gimmick and make it something that draws money. Because, of course, they won't let him do that either.
Here's a question. What's the last memorable tournament that WWE did for you?
Last memorable well, the one that I had any interest in the outcome was probably the tournament that they had Ambrose and Reigns finish in 2015 in November.
The WWE title?
For the WWE title, which was basically Deadly Games, that Sheamus ended up cashing his money in the bank on Roman afterwards when nobody wanted Roman to win. But then nobody also wanted Sheamus to cash it in either, so Sheamus didn't get a pop, and Triple H didn't get a pop, and Roman Reigns didn't get a pop, and nobody got a pop. And everybody was really upset at the end.
Dean Ambrose should have won it so that at least when Sheamus cashed in on him, Dean Ambrose would have gotten the heat.
I know. It was, man, what a disaster of a finish. But that was the only time that I was actually somewhat even intrigued about a tournament. I did like when Regal won his King of the Ring, though, because he got a lot of mileage out of it.
He did, and it was really the most memorable thing Regal did in the late stages of his career.
Yeah.
For me, though, you have to talk about the Cruiserweight Classic.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who knows me knows that I think that the Cruiserweight Classic is one of the best things WWE did in years.
Yeah. And following it up with a good Mae Young Classic as well.
2 Mae Young Classics.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Cruiserweight Classic is that it did something that WWE never did, and that was feature outside talent.
Yes.
Like, you had a tournament with Zack Sabre Jr. and Kota Ibushi in it.
Yeah.
You had a tournament with Gran Metalik and TJ Perkins until TJ Perkins became cancer.
Well, if that's the way it goes.
The Brian Kendrick story in that tournament was so good.
It was. Well, Brian Kendrick is a great wrestler. I really enjoy Brian Kendrick.
I mean, we even got to see Tajiri.
That was really fun.
It was fun seeing Tajiri in the tournament.
And he looked good for his age. You know, the fact that he could still move around like that. Got to give the guy a lot of credit. He's been through a lot.
Right. And that was also the beginning of the Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa feud.
Yeah. Yeah, so
the early stages.
When they get it right, you know, and I like that kind of concept when they started to do that, having like the UK tournament and all of that kind of stuff. When WWE started going, we're going to do events that are specifically just a tournament. That was so different for them.
Talent from outside the company, so it feels different.
Yeah, but then at the same, for every one of those, you get Xavier Woods winning the King of the Ring, where most of the matches were neither memorable or important.
Or you get something so upsetting like the Best of the World tournament, turning it to Shane McMahon winning
in a 4-minute match against Dolph Ziggler.
Remember, originally it was supposed to be The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler.
But in fairness to those two would have put on a good match because they've done it before.
No, but the problem is that how many times have Dolph Ziggler and The Miz wrestled against each other?
I can't think of many past their feud in 2016, but I'm sure
Sean,
overall, a jillion.
Exactly.
Overall, a jillion.
I've seen every single type of iteration you can have with those two. The Battle of Ohio is boring. I don't want to see it.
Well, I didn't want to see Shane win either.
And that's the worst part, that Shane made me want to see the Battle of Ohio.
I know. So, you know, sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. In all fairness to Shane, though, he did turn that into a pretty decent heel run where people really did not want to see him on their television. That's heat.
Yes, but the thing about it is that I'm tired of the McMahon heel shit.
Me too. Oh, don't get me wrong. Me too. And it was another one of those things I hated Greg Hamilton for. Yeah,
well, you don't have to worry about him anymore. Yeah, he's not even here anymore.
He's gone. Neither is Shane. So we're good. We're good. But tournaments, definitely a mixed bag. That when they work and you line it up right, they're a great mechanism for telling stories. They've worked since the dawn of professional wrestling. But if you put too much gimmicky garbage into it, it's just a recipe for disaster.
And, well, Yeah. And hopefully, though, in the future, WWE will do better tournaments, and maybe AEW will stop doing too many of theirs.
That's right. Well, yeah, exactly. But yeah, well, I'll take more tournaments of them and less casino battle royales if I had the choice. But but in any case, it's a good thing. There's one thing we should clarify, though, Sky, for the people at home, that when these people don the hat and don the crown and don the robe and get the scepter, not all of them also don accents, making them look and feel more regal. There's only one man who did that, and we're going to see his victory here in our match of the week. Roll it.
What time is it?
It's the fight, it's the brawl, it's the match of the week. It's the night, watch along with the son of a beat. It's one fall, the down for the 1, 2, and 3. So don't stall, hang on to the edge of your seat. We got a punch and a flip and a powerbomb too. All the moves and the stars are all under review. See the baby face cheered and the heels get heat. This is wrestling at its peak. It's the match of the week. That's right, folks. It is our match of the week. It is Judgment Day 2006. This match was something. It's the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. It is Bobby Lashley going up against Booker T
with Sharmell.
With Sharmell, who they cut to a lot in this matchup.
To be fair, Sharmell is a fine woman.
She is, but she got a lot of camera time. And you could definitely...
Well, she was the original Brandi.
That's right. Well, that's really, really accurate. Holy Christ. That's insanely accurate. That is... Wow. But it is not confirmed that Sharmell has ever eaten her placenta. The jury is still out on that. We cannot cast aspersions about what Sharmell does after giving birth to her children.
Me, you did not just say that.
Yeah. Oh no, I did. But
talk about the match.
This excuse me, this match. That's funny. This match. So, Booker T, it was very clear that the fans really had not quite gripped the heel turn of Booker T yet until really the ending of this match. And I think the entrance theme was part of it.
Well, they changed it up. They didn't have the "Can you dig it, sucker" part.
Right. But still, it still was pretty much the same.
Maybe they should have changed it more.
Yeah, I mean, they did right after this, which was the right move. They gave him much more of a heelish theme, which I really liked. I liked King Booker's theme song after he actually cemented his turn. This match was kind of basic. I mean...
It was.
But in all fairness, Bobby Lashley had only been wrestling for a year at this point, and he had come along pretty well, but you could tell Booker T was leading pretty much all of this.
I mean, in the story, it was the vet versus the young guy, and that was pretty much the match, not just in storyline, but also behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Now, I had a comparison I wanted to make to another match of the week that we saw not too long ago. Did this not kind of feel like the Kane-Drew McIntyre match? In a way.
A little.
Because it did feel like, it felt like Kane had to lead Drew McIntyre to that match because Drew wasn't there yet.
Right.
Same thing with Booker T. He had to kind of lead Bobby in there because Bobby was still not... Bobby was a raw talent. Like, he was raw, but you could tell there was a spark in him.
Oh, yeah, and I would say that Bobby's strikes looked a little bit better than Drew's in that match with Kane. But there was... A lot of this was a bunch of Booker T high kicks and kind of framing this around... Booker T trying to get the scissors kick a few times, not being able to do it. You know, Bobby displaying Bobby's pure strength, which was great. You know, it was sometimes simpler is better. It was a basic match, and it served its purpose.
Yeah, and I will say this, though. Bobby Lashley doesn't age. He looks exactly the same now as he did in 2006.
I know. It's amazing. And he's, what, 44, 45 now?
45.
Yeah.
So that means he would have been 30 at this time. But the other thing, too, is that Bobby, the scary thing about him is not his strength. It's his speed. He
Yeah.
moves like a man half his size.
Yeah. And you could tell he always just gets that momentum going on him. And that was the great part about this. You know, the starting with the shoulder, Booker T working a little bit, you know, to get, you know, the thumb to the eye, and then another shine of the baby face, and then the distraction by Sharmell. You know, they did a lot of heel mechanics to kind of really emphasize the fact of, hey, Booker T's heel, you should boo him, which they really weren't until really towards the end of this match when people started chanting for Bobby Lashley. But people didn't really have a reaction for Booker T for most of this match, I thought.
No, the other thing, too, though, is that they had to do a lot of the heel booking because the story was very clear that Booker T was not going to beat Bobby Lashley in a match, in a fair match.
Right.
Because Bobby is just too strong, too powerful. He got a big amount of protection in this match.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Like, he kicked out of the scissor kick, the first one, I think.
Yep, and the bookend. And it took Sharmell getting another distraction so that Finlay can hit him with a shillelagh shot that we didn't get to see because Peacock.
I'm sure it was very good.
I'm sure it was great.
Because Finlay lays his shit in.
Yeah, and I'll bet you it didn't even hit his head. I bet you it hit like right on like the bridge of the neck. Because that's where he'd hit it, so he'd get it so actually the ball would kind of cup the neck. So it would look like it hit you really hard, but it didn't actually hit you in the spot that it looked like it hit you. Because he's a goddamn professional.
Yes, and Finlay, talk about guys like William Regal who should have been world champion at some point. I know it's WWE and it's sports entertainment, but god damn it, Finlay deserved the world title at some point.
He's an incredible worker. He was really an underrated. We should do a little bit more introspection into Finlay because he's a really good worker. Long before he ever got to WWE, he had a hell of a career. That'll be someone we'll have to peek into on another day. On a St. Patrick's Day, another day.
Yes, little lads on the boys.
Yes,
on the drinks.
that's right. So while Finlay is looking for Swoggle, these two wrestled, and you know Finlay finally hits a shillelagh shot. Did you notice when Bobby Lashley, I believe it hit the spear on Booker T and it got him to the corner of the ropes where he was going to pin him, Sharmell started sprinting down the side because I think Sharmell realized she missed her cue to put Booker T's foot on the ropes. And so Booker T had to kick out.
She was going so fast.
Yeah, she was running because she's like, oh shit.
And I think she was in heels. I think she was in heels too.
Yeah. And Booker T just had to kick out, and I'm like, I bet you that he was not supposed to kick out there. I think that Sharmell realized at the very end that she was on the wrong side of the ring to get for that move. But
again, the first original Brandi.
it's okay. It's okay. It didn't hurt the match. It didn't hurt the match. I just thought it was funny.
Well, do we want to talk about funny?
Yes, well, so Booker T wins this, right? And the crowd goes mild because they don't know how to react. I mean, they seen all the heel stuff, so they were kind of booing. And then Booker T goes up and he sits in the chair, and then you hear a
Well,
pop.
here's the thing. Sharmell puts the crown, puts the scepter, gets the robe. Booker T's doing all this great posing and shit.
And then you hear the pop, and he sits down on the chair. Bobby Lashley comes through and kind of spears Booker T through it.
Through the throne.
Yep, through the throne. And cheers, kind of dead stares Brandi and walks out. And then Booker T with some of the best selling I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't
just to sell.
It was so
the fact
silly.
that Sharmell tried to put the crown on Booker T's head and it kept falling off.
Oh, it was incredible.
And she was getting so frustrated, and Booker T's like, no, don't put it on the head. And Sharmell just kept trying.
And boy, meanwhile, the camera is zoomed on Booker T as his eyes are like bulging, and he's trying to do all these different facial expressions, and then finally just settles on a grimace because she's like, "Where's it hurt, babe? Where's it hurt?" And he like finally gets up and he goes over and is like, "Get my robe." He's like, "Wear my robe," and he finally gets his robe on and he kind of like sells it. Still, oh, it was so funny. It was just for the last minute of this video, and the link is going to be in the description of this video if you want to go back and watch that. It is it's so worth the watch. Even if you don't even watch the match, watch the last 2 minutes of that video. It is worth every second.
Don't forget that this is maybe Charmel's greatest contribution to wrestling, because it certainly wasn't that match she had in TNA all those years later.
With Jenna Maraska. Well, thankfully, 2009 not only had Booker T, but Bobby Lashley showed up and wrestled Samoa Joe.
You Bobby Lashley.
That's right. Don't you mock me, sir.
No, I'm trying to do a goofy impression.
Well, look at Bobby Lashley. It's time for a superstar spotlight.
You.
God. This is going off the rails. Bobby Lashley deserves better than goofy, because he has always tried to just be a serious man in a serious wrestling capacity. And his career, which started in WWE, I believe.
Well, hold on. Before we even talk about his WWE career, we have to talk about his life before.
Yes.
Because Bobby Lashley is a legit man. The son of a drill sergeant. He was a national champion in wrestling in college.
That's right.
Bobby Lashley, and then he went to the military, became a sergeant in the U.S. Army.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, have you ever seen Bobby Lashley in his military gear?
I believe so.
He doesn't age.
Mm-mm. He has not aged since he popped out. He's still got that baby skin
face coming out of the mom's womb.
I believe that's how it was. Head fully grown. The rest of his body was still a baby.
And then cut off the placenta and give it to Brandi.
No. She only eats her own. We're not giving people placentas to eat. This is not how we're doing this. This is going on way too far. I am ending this placenta.
You want to know something funny, though? That Bobby Lashley was such a good wrestler that he was going to wrestle in the 2004 Olympic Games for Team USA. But do you want to know what happened in 2003?
He got signed to WWE?
No, he witnessed a bank robbery and was forced to dive for cover to avoid gunfire. It resulted in an injury that ended his amateur career.
Oh, that's a shame.
But this guy was one knee injury away from representing Team USA at the 2004 Olympic Games. And could you imagine if he had won gold?
He probably would have been pushed even harder than he had been.
Because Bobby was a favorite for Team USA at the 04 Games.
I bet he would. I'm sure he would have done well. It's a shame.
Anyways, it's a shame. But he appears, he went to the Army afterwards, and then after the Army, he signed with WWE in mid-2005. He was pushed right away. He got that Brock Lesnar push.
Yeah, except that Brock Lesnar had a lot more training under his belt before he showed up than Bobby did.
This feels like one of those cases where Bobby Lashley, if he had appeared 3 years earlier and spent a year or two in OVW, could have been like Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but they pushed him right away, thinking that he was just gonna blend into it as naturally as Kurt Angle did. And no disrespect to Bobby, but he really didn't.
His wrestling was good enough. I think his wrestling itself, I mean, this match was green, but, it's green Bobby Lashley.
Right.
But the problem with Bobby Lashley has always been the fact that his promos have never been good.
Yeah. Because WWE needed personalities, and Bobby Lashley just didn't really have one.
Outside of the bulging eyes.
Right.
And his bulging eyes are not as good as Booker T's Booker T. Booker T. Damn it.
Yeah, there were some Booker T's rolling out of his nose after getting speared off the throne. But
we're just roasting each other through this last half of the show.
We are. Well, this is what it's gone to. This is how this show has just framed itself. So, but in any case, he lands in 2006. They kind of push him, but then I think they realized that they can't go too ham with him until WrestleMania 2007.
Go ahead.
The Battle of the Billionaires. It is Vince McMahon versus the dumber Vince McMahon in a match where each person was represented by a professional wrestler, and whoever lost got his head shaved. And Bobby Lashley was the dumber Vince McMahon's choice, and Vince McMahon's choice was Umanga. This feud, redeeming qualities of this feud led to the iconic Bobby Lashley moment of him charging the cage and breaking the side of the steel cage, which was huge in putting him over.
Yes. Hold on. Was that the show that JR had the famous call?
Which famous call?
It's Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley. I'll be a son of a bitch.
I think so. I think it is.
I think that was the part of the mystique, is that he did the charge, and JR, still when JR still cared about wrestling, did the most legendary call he could for Bobby.
Yeah. And it was a pretty wild moment. It really was. Back when WWE still could put on some wild moments.
Just proved that Bobby Lashley could do a Braun Strowman spot better than Braun Strowman.
Yeah, and without needing a toolbox at the top of the cage to do it.
What is Bucks Cutter?
I am representing people who've been called stupid. Like
this
me.
is for all the people who are stupid. Everyone starts cheering.
Yep, that's this was WWE. But in any case, but Bobby Lashley deserves better than Braun Strowman.
And he became ECW World Champion as a result.
And it got better from there. Well, to be fair, he was ECW champion before the WrestleMania feud. That was one of ECW's biggest failings, was making him ECW champion, because have you seen the December to Dismember pay-per-view? It's bad.
Oh, it's real bad.
That's 2006 WWE right there for you. You want to see it wrapped up in a nice little neat shell. It's bad.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Bobby Lashley, because I thought one of the most badass things in that entire show was Bobby Lashley just booting his pod and just walking up being like, I'm not waiting. I'm just going to go and fight. That I liked a lot. You know, there's things about Bobby Lashley that I've always liked, but he's definitely someone who, with every passing year, has added just a little bit more to create what would end up being a total package later.
Well, I think what helped is that he left WWE in 2008. One of his last matches was losing to John Cena at the Great American Bash in 2008.
Yeah. And that was after he had lost the ECW title to Vince McMahon. Yeah. That's how they treated the man who they thought was going to be Brock Lesnar.
Right. And then Bobby Lashley, he goes around. He does a little bit of AAA. He does a little bit of a couple other Japanese wrestling promotions.
Tons of Bellator.
He does MMA. If he had joined MMA from the beginning, like, he fought in Bellator for a long time. His MMA record actually is 15-2.
Yeah.
I think instead of wrestling, if he had been part of MMA from the beginning, he probably would have been a champion in Bellator. He probably would have been in the UFC.
He very possibly, if he had chosen UFC as a career, he very possibly could have been one of UFC's top stars as it started really gaining momentum en masse as the mid-2000s into the 2010s really rolled around.
Seriously, he's 255, so he would have been a heavyweight. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. 06, right? 07, 08, 09?
Yep. Who's
Bobby
around
Lashley,
at the same
Brock
time?
Lesnar.
Yeah. That could have happened.
That could have happened. Never got.
Now, a UFC fight we never got. And a WWE match that they refused to give us.
Right. But then he goes to the promotion that arguably gives him the best treatment, TNA.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, he had that match with, I believe it was Samoa Joe, and then got hurt, and then left for a while and did MMA, and then came back and became their champion, and then really started to develop his career as a really better rounded talent with wouldn't you know who on the pony? MVP.
In the Beatdown Clan. And hey, he had a match with one Mr. Drew Galloway.
Yeah, which
was a match of the week.
It was. Which was actually pretty good, with the exception of EC3 reading Bible verses on commentary. Because he was so boring. Because he was like such like a low tone. But in any case,
boy.
it developed. He started cutting better promos. His matches with Eddie Edwards were pretty good.
He was the last major star that TNA made, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a way, because just like no one has ever gotten the push that he did in. Well, I mean, there are some people who have.
Yeah.
But not to the level that they. It's like TNA. Bobby Lashley was already a star, but they helped him become even better than he was originally.
No one took a ball and ran with it quite like Bobby Lashley in the mid-2010s when TNA was really struggling otherwise.
Right.
He really was a spark that really made me go back and watch matches of his. He was one of the few interesting parts, especially, and even though this was at the same time that we were getting the final deletion.
It's like TNA, every time you come up with something good, you come up with 3 things that are bad.
2016, 2017 TNA was definitely an interesting time. I'm not going to say it was bad. I'm not going to say it was good. I'm going to say it was interesting.
It had both.
But then Bobby returns with quite a lot of hype to WWE.
And didn't do anything for a long time.
And they tried to make him Intercontinental Champion. They teamed him with Leo Rush. They made his eyes yellow.
They
and
had a gimmick where he showed off his ass.
He had 3 sisters. Sisters? Question mark.
AKA rappers.
Yeah, and they just jerked his ass around again. And I was almost like, again, like we say with so many people, why the hell did he come back? Until look who came around to save the day.
Well, hold on. First, we have to talk about Lana and Rusev.
Oh, God, do we have to? Oh.
For the context of what MVP saved them from. The worst storyline that Bobby Lashley was ever involved in. And MVP was so disgusted, he's like, look, you're wasting your time with this woman. Come with me. We can do amazing things.
The Rusev Cuck storyline, of course.
And he married Lana, lost the match because of Lana. MVP said, look, drop this woman.
And then he did.
And then he had to...
That's so funny when just in that context with those words. He married her, his bro said, dump this bitch. And then he did.
You want to know what probably happened is that Lana was with him one night in the bedroom and said, hey, do you want to know what I'm thinking about doing tomorrow? Eating placenta.
Blogging.
Eating placenta.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. It scares men away. Women, this is not normal. Don't do this.
Don't do this.
Don't do this. So Bobby leaves and joins MVP, and then the Hurt Business is formed. And what a difference a year can make.
Because he became one of the more dominant U.S. champions in recent memory. And then he helped The Miz win WWE Championship and liked it so much that he took the title for himself.
And, you know, the funny thing is, after all of this, the one thing that Lashley always lacked was a mouthpiece. And Leo Rush was not bad, honestly, as Bobby Lashley's mouthpiece. I'm not saying he was the greatest, but he was not bad as a manager. I don't like him as a wrestler, but he wasn't bad as a manager. But MVP was a master crafter of exactly how to present Bobby Lashley because he had done it once before. And he knew what Bobby needed.
And the thing about it is that MVP is a very charismatic person. We talked about before during his spotlight.
Yeah.
That MVP is a master on the microphone.
Yep.
Coming up with words, whining, and conniving. He is... If it were not for the god-tier work of Paul Heyman right now, MVP would probably be the best manager in wrestling.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. You got to give the man props. He's definitely up there as comes to the presentation of them and how it's gone down and the kind of the talk it out of the side of the mouth, that kind of the sleazy smile, and he's doing great stuff right now, and he did it great with Bobby. And
think about this for a second. Bobby Lashley not just won the WWE Championship, but retained it at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Lashley is one of only 3 African-American, now 4 African-American WWE champions, or specifically black champions.
Yep.
That's historic. That's representation. And Bobby Lashley wholeheartedly deserves it.
And arguably had the best reign of the bunch. Well, until it came to an end.
The Rock, it's hard to argue with The Rock's reigns.
Well, I mean, The Rock is in a league of his own, obviously.
but definitely better than Kofi and better than Big E so far.
Which is no knock on Kofi, because it wasn't really Kofi's fault that he just got a bad set of opponents before they just ripped the title away from him with Brock Lesnar.
Long title reigns doesn't necessarily mean good title reigns.
Yeah. It wasn't Kofi's fault. It really wasn't. I don't think it was. Because I think if Kofi had a different set of opponents and maybe he had a different theme and didn't wear
if he had a more interesting feud with Randy Orton.
Yeah, if they didn't just kibosh that just for the sake of debuting on Fox, or just ruin it because you look at family and that, that...
No. The problem with the Randy Orton Kofi Kingston feud is that it felt like something that was built off of something that happened 8 years ago and they couldn't capture the magic.
Well, the story was solid, but then the match didn't live up to the expectation, and I think that if Kofi had just beaten Randy flat and that had been that, it would have been fine, but having opponents like Dolph Ziggler beforehand, and we were talking about Dolph Ziggler wrestling people to nauseum. How many times did we see Kofi and Dolph wrestle each other?
Too much.
Exactly. So it was like it just didn't work. And I'm not blaming Kofi because it's not Kofi's fault. But they treated Bobby Lashley with the respect that he deserved and the way that he won and how he won. And then
MVP got hurt, and then they started jobbing him out to Big E, which I don't mind it because I think Big E is good, but they rushed it.
And they also made Bobby Lashley look like the babyface, then Big E went to cash in, so it totally knocked the moment.
And also the fact that they have Bobby Lashley continuously lose to Big E to push Big E over, which again, I don't mind it, but they rushed the feud.
And then he ran into Goldberg.
Oof.
And the first match was fine. The first match was fine. His obliteration of Kofi was brilliant, by the way. Just a fun little add-on. That match was great. But
that should have been the match that Big E would cash in on, but whatever.
Good point. That would have been a great point. But anyway.
But point, though, is that Bobby Lashley has had a great career, and 45 years old, he doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon.
Well, and even if he did, his contributions now to pro wrestling, now that he's won the WWE title, had a proper reign, he's done a hell of a lot in the wrestling business. If he retired tomorrow, he's got a hell of a resume. And I really genuinely respect Bobby Lashley for not only just going through those bumpy patches and the putting up with all the garbage that they put you through, but also really finding the time and making the time to refine your craft as best as you could, to where his promos now are honestly not the worst, but they're a lot better than they used to be.
When he says a swear word, it means something.
Yeah, it's just, to me at this point, Bobby's got nothing left to prove, so I'm just going to appreciate all the time that he's with us for the time that he's with us.
Proof that perseverance can reward you if you stick with it.
Absolutely, which is why we're still running, and why we continue to gain subscribers day by day. And that's why we are so thankful that you have stuck around with us all the way here, an hour and a half in, like we always go, all the way through the end of the career of Bobby Lashley. But you know what it means, Sky?
What does it mean?
It means that it's time to go to our first commercial break. But next week, we will be back with a new match of the week, a new topic, all the news you could ask for, and of course a new spotlight. And then right after that, we've got, as we mentioned, that not this week, but the week after, ACBW versus NWL. It's getting good, folks. It's only going to get better from here. Skylar, any final words you want to say to the people?
The people can expect me to be back next week with even better stuff.
That's right. It only gets better from here. We're going to leave the placentas in this week, and we will see you next week, folks, right after this.